It's 4 o'clock. The top story is live on 7 News. The controversy over the Prime Minister's Qantas perks takes full flight. Pandemic heavy-handedness and poor planning lashed in a new COVID report. And Strike Force bandit catches a third alleged Bluey coin crim.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Ann Sanders.
Good afternoon. The Prime Minister and opposition leader are slinging mud at each other this afternoon over the scandal surrounding Anthony Albanese's Qantas flight upgrades. Live to Josh Martin in Parliament House. Josh, good afternoon. The PM tried to turn the spotlight on Peter Dutton's affairs.
Yes, good afternoon, Anne. The Prime Minister was under intense questioning at a press conference near Newcastle over allegations in a new book, The Chairman's Lounge, by columnist and former Liberal staffer Joe Aston. The book cites Qantas insiders who say Mr Albanese, as Labor Transport spokesman, would liaise with CEO Alan Joyce directly about upgrades for his personal and family travel. Mr Albanese couldn't recall directly speaking to Joyce for upgrades at the press conference and says two of the incidents in question were promotional flights for new routes from Australia to London and Dubai, which had media and other politicians on board. The Labor leader says 10 other upgrades were for flights paid for by his party during a 2013 leadership contest with Bill Shorten. He then tried to turn the blowtorch on his rival. Peter Dutton has been flown around in the private jet of mining billionaire Gina Rinehart multiple times and has a family trust fund.
Peter Dutton seems to be obsessed with making attacks on myself, my family. There is a difference between both of us. My flights were commercial with Qantas or Virgin. It's up to Mr Dutton to explain how those flights were organised to private parties.
Mr Albanese needs to be honest. He can throw mud, he can blame other people, but this is a problem of his own making.
And the opposition want the matter referred to the Corruption Commission and will move for an inquiry into Mr Albanese and his influence with Qantas when the Senate returns on November 18, pushing for former CEO Alan Joyce to take the stand and answer questions. But Anne, this saga clearly has a long way to run, especially with that election coming up next May.
Josh Martin with the latest from Canberra. Thanks very much, Josh. Almost 5 years since the first COVID-19 case was confirmed in Australia, an expert report into our response to the pandemic has been released. The 12-month inquiry found Australians are unlikely to accept harsh restrictions like lockdowns in the future. It says the Morrison government's heavy-handedness broke down trust.
The erosion of trust is not only constraining our ability to respond to a pandemic when it next occurs, but it's already, we know, bled into the performance of our vaccination programs, including our childhood vaccination program.
The 860-page report called out poor planning, adding vaccine rollout delays cost lives and the economy $31 billion. 6 students have been expelled and 21 suspended from a residential college at the University of Sydney over what it claims was the serious bullying of a classmate. St Paul says it is shocked and disappointed by the incident, which involved the humiliation of a male undergraduate by his friendship group. The warden says the victim is being supported and cared for while it reviews its mandatory anti-bullying training. The institution has a dark history of bullying and sexism controversies. A resident and firefighter have been taken to hospital after a home in East Linfield was engulfed by flames. Investigators believe a lithium battery explosion could be the cause, as Amy Clements reports.
Well, this is what is left of a family home here in East Linfield after a fire took hold in the early hours of the morning. The blaze started in the garage and quickly spread, also destroying a caravan parked in the driveway. Firefighters initially thought people were trapped inside, but everyone was accounted for shortly after they arrived. Neighbours could only watch as the flames took hold. One brave bystander attempted to help, armed with just a garden hose.
God, I'm shaking. I've never even seen anything like this in my life.
I ran downstairs and grabbed the hose. I think my dad was getting the hose out the back, so I got the hose out the front.
At first it was like little explosions. That's what woke me up, and screaming. But then when I looked out the window, it was just a massive orange glow that was coming through the trees.
Extremely intense. Any fire in particularly modern day furnishings and in and around a garage in particular. I'm looking at the damage from the garage door to some of the metal framework, some of the contents that has actually just been completely consumed.
One man from the home was taken to hospital for burns to his hands. A firefighter was also treated but has since been released from hospital and is okay. Detectives and fire investigators have been on the scene this morning looking at a possible cause. One line of inquiry is that a lithium-ion battery may have ignited the blaze.
To breaking news now, a major emergency is unfolding at a primary school in Melbourne's inner east, where a car has reportedly hit multiple children. Live to Beth Ann Yeoman in our Melbourne newsroom. Beth, what can you tell us so far?
And the incident happened around school pickup time. It's prompted a big emergency response. These pictures just in from the 7 News chopper show the scene. The car with green P plates has come to a stop under a pergola near some sporting grounds. Police, ambulance and firefighters are all responding. So too are worried parents waiting for answers. It's unclear how many children have been hurt and what injuries they may have sustained. Ambulance Victoria says its priority is treating the patients on the ground.
Beth Ann Yeoman with that breaking news from Melbourne. Thanks very much for updating us, Beth Ann. Strike Force Bandit has made a new breakthrough, arresting a third person over the alleged theft of 63,000 limited edition Bluey coins. Police stormed a woman's home in Green Valley this morning.
Police! Search warrant! Open the door! Hurry up! Let's go!
The 27-year-old was taken to Liverpool Police Station and charged with a raft of offences, including aggravated break and enter. The collectible currency was stolen from a Wetherill Park warehouse 3 months ago. It's alleged she was the getaway driver in the heist. Bail was refused this afternoon. Donald Trump has told supporters he's, quote, the opposite of a Nazi and called his presidential rival Kamala Harris a fascist. Our US correspondent Tim Lester is on the campaign trail.
For Donald Trump, this is likely a must-win state. Georgia, in the southeast of the United States. He made 2 appearances here today. The second in the stadium behind me, a familiar stadium for the former president because it was part of the complex back in June that hosted the first of those presidential debates. A critical debate because it was where Joe Biden's age exploded as an issue and Donald Trump suddenly had a new rival in Kamala Harris. Today, as he addressed the crowd in the stadium behind me, very focused on his rival.
Then what she was talking about, the newest line from Kamala and her campaign is that everyone who isn't voting for her is a Nazi. He's Hitler. And then they say, he's a Nazi. I'm not a Nazi. I'm the opposite of a Nazi.
For her part, Kamala Harris campaigning in the US Northeast in one of the 3 critical battleground states there, Michigan, quite focused on Donald Trump's appearance in New York yesterday, where there was a lot of criticism, not so much of Trump himself, but of speakers before Trump who were accused of being lewd and being racist. Kamala Harris having plenty to say about Donald Trump's campaign style.
And now he wants unchecked power. Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails. He who has vowed he would be a dictator on day one.
Early voting is already a feature of the 2024 election campaign. Tens of millions have already cast their ballot. Today, among them, President Joe Biden playing an ordinary Joe, no escort in this case, just standing in line to cast his vote. This as the FBI confirms the firebombing of 2 early voting ballot boxes, one in Washington state and one in neighbouring Oregon. They suspect the same firebomber responsible for both cases.
One of the main sources of aid to displaced Gazans is under threat after the Israeli government passed new laws effectively banning the UN Relief Agency from operating on its territories. The legislation, which takes effect in 90 days, declares the body a terror organisation. Foreign Minister Penny Wong says Australia opposes the move. The United Nations claims the bill will only deepen the suffering of civilians living through sheer hell. Jennifer Aniston has remembered Matthew Perry 1 year after his overdose death. The actress shared a series of moving photographs on Instagram, including images of the pair together, the Friends cast huddled arm in arm, and a portrait of her smiling late co-star. The post was simply captioned 1 year, tagging a not-for-profit foundation in his name, set up to help people struggling with substance addiction. Angie Asimus joins us now with a look at the weather. Hi there, Angie. It ended up being a lovely sunny day.
It did, Anne. That certainly wasn't how the day started, though. So the afternoon was the best. It was a grey morning across the city, but those clouds gradually eased before entirely clearing later this afternoon. So the overcast conditions meant it was quite a warm start to the day, 17 degrees the low. The CBD then hit a maximum of 24 just after 11 a.m. There were a few showers and storms around last night, very light and patchy, a few millimetres falling around Wollongong, a couple through the Blue Mountains, and not much elsewhere. Didn't really make it to the coast. Daytime temperatures are tending a little bit above average, 33 degrees, the top at Moree, 29 for Tamworth, cooler on the coast with southerly winds, 21 degrees at Newcastle and at Bateman's Bay. Whether it's hot or cool, the main thing to note today is that it has been settled. That wet weather's moved offshore. We have high pressure to thank for that. We're not likely to see a change to that pattern until Thursday. So tomorrow is looking a treat. I'll have the full forecast soon, Anne.
See you then, Angie. Thank you. And still to come this hour, rescuers reunited with a bushwalker who became trapped between boulders. Molotov cocktails tossed at a Strathfield home, igniting a hunt for the firebomber. And payday for Australia Post bosses. Big bonuses despite a big full-year loss. An arsonist is on the run this afternoon after firebombing a home in Strathfield. A Molotov cocktail was thrown at the property last night. The homeowner put out the blaze before emergency services arrived. As we go to air, police are hunting those responsible. Executives at Australia Post have pocketed big bonuses, despite the corporation posting a full-year loss of $88.5 million before tax. Business editor Amelia Brace with the figures.
It wasn't a financial year that many companies would want to celebrate, and yet big bosses at Australia Post are doing their best to spin their annual results, including their big bonuses. The taxpayer-owned entity has posted losses of almost $90 million, largely due to its lagging letters business. But the poor result hasn't stopped executives raking in $3.5 million in bonuses, with CEO Paul Graham receiving a $900,000 bump.
If they're not doing well, they should have those bonuses reduced.
I think all of the very senior people have got too big a pay rises anyway.
Customers and staff are angry. The leadership team is being rewarded in a year that saw more than 70 post offices close, the price of stamps increase by 30% and deliveries decrease to every second day. Australia Post has defended the bonuses, saying its significant loss was actually much better than expected, pointing out it has outperformed the previous year by more than $110 million.
The Pentagon claims 10,000 North Korean troops have been sent to Russia to train and fight against Ukraine in the coming weeks. That figure is more than 3 times higher than initial estimates by the United States. Soldiers are moving closer to the Kursk border region. NATO says it's a sign of Vladimir Putin's growing desperation.
600,000 Russian soldiers have been killed or wounded in Putin's war, and he is unable to sustain his assault on Ukraine without foreign support.
Pyongyang has dispatched its foreign minister and a delegation to Moscow for her second trip in less than 2 months. The woman who became trapped between 2 boulders for 7 hours while trying to retrieve her phone in the Hunter Valley was reunited today with the rescue crews who pulled her free. Natasha Squarey was there.
Well, Matilda Campbell was enjoying a weekend away with her friends here in the Hunter Valley when one small mistake sparked an urgent and complex rescue operation that made headlines around the world. The 23-year-old was bushwalking with a friend in Laguna when that friend dropped her iPhone between two boulders. Matilda thought she'd be able to get it, but after she ventured into this opening, she fell into a 3-metre crevice and was stuck upside down.
It was just I lost footing, and then all of a sudden I'm in this hole. It probably took me about half an hour, I think, to realise that I was fully stuck, and then I started hyperventilating and I did cry. I had a big cry.
One friend stayed by her side while two others drove 45 minutes to find phone reception and call for help. And when rescue teams arrived, they knew they had a huge task ahead, and with the help of police and paramedics, they moved several boulders to free her.
We're going to head first up.
It was a really technical and difficult rescue and quite dangerous as well.
I don't think any of us has seen anyone in that compromised position before.
After 7 hours of being stuck, specialist paramedics carefully manoeuvred Matilda out of the hole. Incredibly, her injuries were minor, mostly just cuts, grazes and a fractured vertebrae. Today, Matilda thanked the people who saved her life.
I'm just really thankful to see them again, and they've, well, made my life. Like, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them.
Matilda says she might give bushwalking a little break for now.
Next in 7's afternoon news, we'll have sport with Jelisa Apps, including Pat Cummins backs one of Aussie cricket's brightest young stars to shine against India. Plus, Karakuni Cross scores a wonder goal for the Matildas against Germany. And later, Hollywood star Colin Farrell pushes himself to the limit. A marathon effort for a friend.
On 7 News at 6, You Can't Be Serious. Exclusive. Sydney's tunnel trouble. Dangerous drivers ruining your daily drive.
Peak hour is terrible.
I'm very frustrated.
The shocking security vision that has authorities fired up, and the new changes coming that will impact every Sydney driver. On 7 News at 6.
Tonight in 7 News, the upgrades mess that Anthony Albanese can't run away from. A bullying scandal rocks an elite Sydney college. Exclusive, the reckless drivers inside Sydney's tunnels. The next-gen army helicopters flying over your suburb. And Pat Cummins talks to 7 News about his new book, Sydney 7 News at 6.
Time for sport now with Jelisa Apps and a big endorsement from the Aussie cricket captain, Jelisa.
Doesn't really get much bigger than this, and Pat Cummins says he'd have no reservations about Sam Constas playing in the huge series against India if he's selected for the vacant opener role. The fellow New South Welshman is just 19 years old, but has impressed in the Sheffield Shield this season with twin centuries.
I think reality tests, every test he plays is tough. If it's not an Indian series, it's Sri Lankan series that's coming up next on spinning wickets, or we go over to England for a World Test Championship, or it's the Ashes next year. There's no real perfect time to place anyone.
Cummins today launched his new book Tested, which is a collection of 11 interviews the pace bowler conducted. Joseph Suaalii is embracing the pressure and scrutiny that comes with being rugby union's $5 million man. Showing off the Indigenous-themed jersey the Wallabies will wear against the British and Irish Lions next year with teammates, Suaalii responded to critics who say his fast-track selection cheapens the jersey.
I'm on my own path. I feel like I'm doing my own path and dreaming how I want to dream. Everyone else can have their opinion, and look, I'm just living the life I want to live.
Suaalii is expected to debut on next month's spring tour against Wales in Cardiff. A Karakuni Cross wonder strike propelled the Matildas to a stunning upset win over world number 4 Germany, trailing 1-0 approaching half-time. Cooney Cross launched one from distance.
And this sort of moment's been coming. Cooney Cross is going to shoot from distance. Incredible! Australia are level! And it's Karakuni Cross!
Claire Hahn scored in the 77th minute to seal the 2-1 victory for the Aussies.
Delighted by the effort of the players, the discipline of the players, the work rate of the players, and the attitude for 90 minutes. I thought the team did an absolutely fantastic job tonight.
It's the Matildas' first win over Germany since 2005, which was also under Tom Sermanni. 24 hours after a disastrous loss to West Ham, Manchester United sacked manager Erik ten Hag. With the Red Devils languishing at 14th on the Premier League table, United boss gave the Dutchman his marching orders. United legend Ruud van Nistelrooy has taken charge on an interim basis. Warwick Farm trainer Bjorn Baker is confident Steffi Magnetica can bounce back from her unplaced run in the Everest in Saturday's $10 million Golden Eagle at Rosehill. The mare took out the Group 1 Stradbroke handicap in Brisbane earlier this year over a similar distance.
Her best run ever was in the Stradbroke, over 1400, so very similar. Hasn't had a lot of luck at Rosehill before, but hopefully Saturday's the day where she does get luck, and that's the day we want luck.
You'll see the race live on 7. Plenty of variety in sport today, Anne.
Thank you very much, Jelisa.
Thank you.
Colin Farrell has conquered the Dublin Marathon for a cause close to his heart. The actor pushed his friend's wheelchair across the finish line, hoping to raise $1.6 million for incurable and debilitating genetic conditions. Emma Fogarty was born with no skin on her left foot and right arm. Doctors told her parents she was unlikely to live longer than a week. At 40 years old, she's Ireland's oldest survivor of the disease. The Oscar nominee hailed her courage, saying she epitomises bravery and pure determination. This afternoon's top stories are next, including a live update on the car that's crashed into a primary school in Melbourne. Plus, Matthew Perry's mother reveals their tender final moments 1 year on from his death. And we'll show you the Army's new fleet of Black Hawk choppers.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Ann Sanders.
Returning to our breaking news, where a car has crashed into a primary school in Melbourne. Live to Beth Ann Yeoman in our Melbourne newsroom. Beth, you've received an update from police and one child is in a critical condition.
That's right, Anne. At this stage, we don't know what kind of injuries that child has sustained, but we do know 4 other students have been transported to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The incident happened around school pickup time. From our 7 News chopper, we can see the driver was a green P-plater, and we're hearing she may have suffered a medical episode behind the wheel. We know she has just been arrested by police and she will now be questioned over the incident. The car appears to have crashed through the gate and come to a stop under a pergola near some sporting grounds. There is a massive emergency response unfolding at the scene. There's police, ambulance, firefighters, and of course lots of worried parents. We'll bring you another update as more information comes to hand, Anne.
Beth Ann Yeoman with that very sad news coming out of Melbourne this afternoon. Thanks very much, Beth. The Prime Minister has tried to turn the spotlight on Peter Dutton as he comes under intense questioning over his own Qantas perks. A new book by a former Liberal staffer, citing airline insiders, claims Anthony Albanese, as transport spokesman, would liaise with former CEO Alan Joyce about upgrades for personal travel. The PM says he couldn't recall direct communications. The opposition wants the matter referred to the Corruption Commission, but in an attempt to deflect, Mr Albanese says Peter Dutton has been flown around in the private jet of mining billionaire Gina Rinehart multiple times. Our political editor Mark Riley has all the fallout tonight at 6 o'clock. A new campaign has been launched to ditch an archaic tax costing businesses millions of dollars. The broadcast licence fee was set up decades ago, but Seven's national news boss argues it's doing more harm than good. Blake Johnson reports.
The battle for audience attention is tougher than ever, but Seven's national news boss argues the playing field is more uneven than ever. Anthony DeSegli, speaking at a Melbourne Press Club function, has called on the Albanese government to ditch the broadcast licence fee charged to commercial stations. Across 7, 9 and 10, the total annual fee is around $45 million.
I asked the Albanese government, how many jobs do they think that is? How many TV newsroom shifts will disappear so that we can pay it?
Anthony DeSegli argues social media sites, streaming services, don't pay a licence fee to operate in Australia, so why should free-to-air television be forced to?
To a large extent, they're now replicating the model that free-to-air television in Australia has, but they're not paying a licence fee to get there.
It comes at a time disinformation on social media is more prevalent and the job of journalists is arguably more important than ever.
There is only one true antidote. and that is the news.
The TV media landscape has changed greatly since TV's early glory days. A fragmented advertising market with new players popping up is forcing a rethink of business models.
The government acts like newsrooms are still bathing in the rivers of profits.
News deals signed with Meta or Google are expiring or have not been renewed. The future of payment for content deals is uncertain.
Delivering more homes for more people in Western Sydney. That's the aim of state government and local council for more than 3,000 new homes in Canterbury. Our property editor, Angie Gopi, joins me now to tell us more. Angel, this is part of a new development program. Why has Canterbury been chosen?
Well, Anne, it's all about targeting areas around train and metro stations and building high-density units. Canterbury is one of the suburbs earmarked. The planning laws are said to deliver 170,000 homes in the next 15 years, completely transforming parts of Sydney. Canterbury will have 3,200 new homes. Around the station, we could see 24-storey blocks down to 4-storey blocks.
This is all part of the New South Wales Government's efforts to rebalance growth and rebalance housing growth to tackle the housing challenge we have in New South Wales, to make sure that there are more well-located homes for people of all ages, of all demands, of all needs.
Now, there are some locals who are concerned about these developments. There are heritage and Federation homes in the area, and they don't want charm to be taken away.
24 stories is way too high.
It's quite frustrating because they're saying that this development is aimed at young people suffering from the housing crisis. I'm one of those people. I don't want to live in a development that has no character.
And the full story tonight on 7 News at 6.
Our property editor, Angie Gopi. Thanks very much, Angel. 2 people have been taken to hospital after a house went up in flames on the Upper North Shore. The blaze started in the garage at the East Linfield home before quickly spreading, destroying a caravan and gutting the property.
Go to look out my window, just orange and like flashing everywhere. Go to my brother's room, look out, just whole house on fire.
At first it was like little explosions, that's what woke me up, and screaming.
We ran downstairs and grabbed the hose. I think my dad was getting the hose out the back, so I got the hose out the front.
Firefighters initially thought a family was trapped inside, but both parents and their 4 daughters were accounted for. A man in his 60s was taken to hospital for burns to his hands, while a firefighter injured his hand while at the scene.
Extremely intense. Any fire in it, particularly modern day furnishings and in and around a garage in particular. I'm looking at the damage from the garage door to some of the metal framework, some of the contents that has actually just been completely consumed in the fire.
Fire investigators suspect a lithium-ion battery explosion could be to blame. Myer has struck a $950 million deal to buy 5 high-profile fashion brands. The company will acquire Just Jeans, JJ's, Portman's, Dottie and Jackie E from Premier Investments. It's owned by billionaire Solomon Lew, who'll return to the department store chain board as a director. Shareholders need to approve the transaction. Combined, it'd see the group own more than 780 stores, employ 17,000 staff and earn $4 billion in annual sales. It's been exactly 1 year since the overdose death of Friends star Matthew Perry. On the anniversary, the actor's family has opened up on his battle with addiction and how they are helping others with substance abuse.
On screen, he played the Joker, the character whose one-liners always got the laughs.
You have to stop the Q-tip when there's resistance.
But off camera, Matthew Perry battled depression as well as alcohol and drug addiction for much of his life. Now, a year since his death, his mother has shared her memories of the star for the first time.
He went through a period, interestingly enough, just before he died, when he was showing me one of his new houses. He came up to me and he said, I love you so much, and I'm so happy to be with you now. And it was almost as though it was a premonition or something.
Perry was found dead in his hot tub at his LA home. An autopsy determined he'd drowned after taking a ketamine overdose. He was 54.
There was an inevitability to what was going to happen next to him, and he felt it very strongly. But he said, "I'm not frightened anymore," and it worried me.
A police investigation into Perry's death unearthed a criminal network of alleged doctors and drug dealers who took advantage of the actor as he fell back into addiction last August. 5 people have been charged in relation to the actor's death, with the first to be sentenced this week. Zoe Martin, 7 News.
The Australian Army has put on an impressive display of their new Black Hawk helicopters. Soldiers have clocked up more than 1,400 hours in training since the fleet's arrival last year. Our Defence Editor, Rob Scott, was given a look.
Well, this is the new Army Black Hawk helicopter. It's going to be the new workhorse for the Australian Army. It's on display here at the Holsworthy Army Barracks just outside of Sydney. And to talk through its capability, I'm joined by Major General Jeremy King. Major General, thanks for your time. Just tell us, this is replacing the Taipan. What makes this so much better?
It makes it just as good, if not better, in terms of its reliability and capability. It's a modern aircraft, it's a mature aircraft, and as you saw today, what it can do is what we need it to do in support of roles such as counter-terrorism.
It's a utility aircraft, so it's going to be used for a variety of roles. Just run us through some of those roles and how important they are in our region at the moment.
So right now, our focus is on delivering the capability for a counter-terrorism capability, but it can do everything from domestic threats, domestic support and engagement. You know, the fire and floods that others have asked us to do previously, that's not what it's specifically been acquired for, because it can be so much more capable than that. But it's a utility helicopter, as you say, and designed to perform all of those roles.
We have had Black Hawks in the past. This is a newer version, isn't it?
That's correct, yes. So previously we had the S-70 aircraft. That was a venerable workhorse that basically expired during its life. These look very similar, slightly different colour, but the reality is the inside of the aircraft and the systems that are in it allow it to perform so much more than what we could do with our old Black Hawks.
How does it compare to other countries' capability?
Look, I think we wouldn't be buying the aircraft if we didn't think it was a capable aircraft. We've stayed aligned with the US Army equivalent of this aircraft. That buys us into a system that is mature and capable, and very, very capable indeed.
Thanks so much for your time, Major General.
My pleasure.
So there we go. The newest addition to the Australian Army, the Black Hawk helicopter. The government has bought 40 of these from the United States. 12 will be in country by the end of the year. The remainders rolled out over the next 6 years. The total cost, $3 billion.
Angie Bank has today's full investor report next, plus festive food favourites on a budget, the ways savvy shoppers can save on their Christmas lunch. It's 27 degrees in Penrith, a full forecast soon.
Dishwasher detergent test. Tablets, powders, liquids, see which products come out on top. Plus, secrets from the set of Saturday Night Live. What really goes on behind the scenes of one of the longest running TV shows of all time. Start with Sunrise. Together. On 7 News at 6, You Can't Be Serious. Exclusive. Sydney's tunnel trouble. Dangerous drivers ruining your daily drive.
Peak hour is terrible.
I'm very frustrated.
The shocking security vision that has authorities fired up, and the new changes coming that will impact every Sydney driver. On 7 News at 6.
Sydney is one step closer to becoming a city that never sleeps, with plans for a 24-hour CBD officially taken to council. The Squires Landing is among the venues that wants to trial late-night trade, much to the anger of residents in the Toaster building across the water at Circular Quay. In submissions, they claim noise will travel across the water and keep them awake.
I think if you live in the city, you choose to live in the city, perhaps you choose that there's going to be a little bit of, or understand there will be some sort of noise level. And I say to the people in the Toaster, perhaps move down to the south coast where it's a bit quieter.
The proposal is expected to pump $1 billion into the state economy and create 7,000 new jobs. To finance, and it was another day of improvements for the local share market. Here's James Tao from ING Bank.
Good afternoon. Well, the Aussie market has managed to lift for a third consecutive session on Tuesday ahead of tomorrow's key inflation numbers for the September quarter. Today, the ASX 200 managed to lift around 27 points, or a third of 1%. Retail stocks made plenty of news today. We had Premier Investments up around 10% after agreeing to sell its apparel business, which owns brands such as Dotti, Portman's and also Just Jeans, to Myer for about $860 million worth of Myer shares. Myer's share price itself did lift initially on the news, but did fade in the afternoon to close a touch lower. We had buy now, pay later provider Zip also jumping about 11% after beating the market's expectations on its quarterly update, and BlueScope Steel down about 0.5% after announcing a profit downgrade. The Aussie dollar is a little bit weaker as well, buying about 65.6 US cents.
Our 6 p.m. news is coming up with Mark Ferguson and Angela Cox. Hi there, Mark. What is on the program?
Yeah, good afternoon, Anne. We have an exclusive update tonight on Sydney's thinning blue line. A new class of officers from across the ditch could help plug that widening gap. How soon before these haka-performing police could hit the streets of Sydney? Grossly inadequate, the brutal report into Australia's COVID bungle, poor planning and heavy-handedness, and why the government may never win the full trust of the public again. Millions of New South Wales residents left high and dry in the illegal surcharge scandal. We have startling claims that victims are still coughing up money and there's no current plan to fix it. A major revelation from Pat Cummins during an exclusive one-on-one interview with 7 News. And what's it like being stuck between a rock and a hard place? Matilda found out the painful way and made global headlines as a result. And we'll have those stories, plus homes being built at lightning quick pace. Details tonight at 6.
Thanks, Virgo. See you then. A third of shoppers say they'll be reining in their Christmas food spend this year. But as Sean White explains, there are cheap alternatives to the classics.
Well, the countdown has well and truly started, with only 57 days left till Christmas. And while the day is fast approaching, most Aussies are looking to slow their spend. 80% of us will be price conscious this festive season. And while your food and drink bill is expected to soar to $406, 27% of people are now looking for cheaper food alternatives. But good news, foodies, we've found them for you. Aldi has curated the perfect Chrissy lunch. It's high on flavour and low on price.
We're feeding 6 to 8 people for under $75.
From entrees, mains, sides and sweets, nothing has been left off the list. From a scrumptious scallop dish for your seafood fix, to the Christmas classics like a roast turkey and plum pudding. Then of course some bubbles to wash it all down. But how have they managed the 7-course meal for under $75? Well, there's a big focus on frozen. Some of the Aldi Christmas menu favourites are ready to defrost. Cheap and convenient without compromising on taste.
One of my favourite tips and tricks is, in fact, buying things early. So go to that freezer section, buy a couple of things every week from now until Christmas, stock up on those things now, and then it's not going to hurt your pocket as much later on.
But as for the items you can't get from the freezer, the advice is to buy in season and save. Also look at bulking up your menu with fan favourites that are easy on the budget.
Cook extra potatoes, cook extra carrots, and fill people up on those things that maybe are a little bit less expensive than some other things that people always love anyway.
Another cost-saving measure is to not over-cater.
You think you need far more than what you actually do need. So I think taking some care to actually really work out how much you need, you can save yourself a lot of money.
While obviously still having enough for those Boxing Day leftovers. Sean White, 7 News.
Coming up live on 7 News, we'll have Sydney's latest forecasts with Angie Asimus.
Good afternoon, Andrea Pranamo here in the Sydney Blinds and Screens traffic chopper. Now through Eastern Creek, we're still seeing big delays for the M7 southbound, and that's following an earlier truck and car accident. Right now in Bar Point, bumper to bumper for the M1 northbound towards the Joels Bridge. That's from an earlier accident with traffic back into Brooklyn. 2-day blinds. Custom-made roller blinds ready in just 2 days. Exclusively at Sydney Blinds and Screens. Visit sydneyblinds.com.au. T's and C's apply.
Tonight in 7 News, the upgrades mess that Anthony Albanese can't run away from. A bullying scandal rocks an elite Sydney college. Exclusive, the reckless drivers inside Sydney's tunnels. The next-gen Army helicopters flying over your suburb. And Pat Cummins talks to 7 News about his new book, Sydney 7 News at 6.
Angie's back with our forecast. How is tomorrow looking, Angie?
Good afternoon to you, and things are looking good. We're enjoying a nice run of settled conditions, but it'll only last until about Thursday. After a grey start this morning, the sunshine eventually emerged. The top in the CBD was 24 degrees, hitting that mark just after 11 a.m. Now, if we check the latest satellite image, high pressure over the Bight is maintaining this fine weather today, the only area of clouds sitting over the state's northeast, and we're seeing some decent rainfall totals in that region. Now, tomorrow, there is very little change to that pattern, so it won't be until Thursday that another trough enters the state's far southwest. That will produce wet weather as it tracks across the state between tomorrow afternoon and the weekend. So around the capitals, Brisbane, just a passing shower on the way, 27 degrees. Cloud will clear in Canberra, also expecting 27. Melbourne, partly cloudy, 21. Hobart, fine and 18. Warming up in Adelaide, 26. Even warmer in Perth, 31. And looking a bit unsettled for Darwin, 35 degrees. Back in the CBD for your Wednesday, now a low of 15 degrees, top of 25, and it will be nice and sunny. Checking the rest of the week, and we have that rainfall just coming in on Thursday afternoon. So Thursday morning will be sunny, but then we do see that wet weather move in onto Friday and Saturday as well. Sunday, though, the showers clear and it will be very warm, 31 degrees in the CBD, 36 in our west. That's the latest weather. I'll have more at 6 o'clock, Anne.
All right, tomorrow looks very nice.
It does.
Thank you. And that is Sydney's 4 p.m. news for this Tuesday. Mark Ferguson and Angela Cox will bring you 7 News at 6. I'm Ann Sanders. Stay with 7 Now for The Chase Australia. And I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. Have a great night.
The 7 News app will give you the news you want every minute of every day, including breaking news alerts. Download the 7 News app now.